Day 2 of the first round of the boss, and due to the weather, we're going to have a quick informal chat. Moving on from yesterday's chat, which I hope you all enjoyed. Sorry I missed it.
Sorry, that's okay.
Okay. Welcome everybody. We've got a few new faces. Who was here yesterday? Okay. Oh, thank you. We've got about half were here yesterday, and we've got another half, I think, that will be new today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Phippsy. From down in Cornwall, okay, and those of you, Gordon's around somewhere, he was. Are you here, Gordon? Gordon? Yeah, okay, we'll see Gordon when he comes in. Darren is there, that's Darren, from up north, and Richard is, you can't see, oh there he is, that's good, Richard. Richard is here from across the other side of the country. We're going to move on a little bit from yesterday, and I gather we had quite a nice chat, went well. But before we do move on from yesterday, here comes Gordon.
Small Gordon.
You don't know Gordon. Can you give your best side, Gordon? No, your best side.
This side, wait for the camera. Camera's here. Go.
We're just going to reiterate, because it's my favourite bit, so I'm really gutted I missed yesterday, about starting competition flying. Okay? And excuse me if you're going to hear some of what you heard yesterday, but it's never paid, it's always paid to go over this bit again. All of you are paid to come here, okay? So all of you have as much right on that hill as anybody else. So don't feel, just because it may be your first time here, you've got a rig at the back in the worst position place. Don't feel you've got to leave places for like Gordon right at the front.
Except for me.
Well, you don't have to, because he'll rig in front of you anyway. You'll just go where you want. But really, you're paid, you've got as much place right to be here as the rest of us. Did we start yesterday with what will be the biggest mistake you're likely to make?
Probably not.
Probably not. So what is the biggest mistake you are likely to make?
Not taking
off. That'll be the biggest mistake, because it really doesn't work very well if you don't take off.
Nobody ever won.
And the second biggest mistake will be not taking off early enough, and you will hang back. As soon as it becomes flyable, sensibly flyable, and people start going up, take off. Get up there, get flying. And I will guarantee if we fly today, and it turns out a half-decent day, I will talk to somebody in the pub tonight in this room and say, how was your day? And you'll go, well, I never actually took off. And then I'll talk to somebody else, and they'll go, well, I did take off, but I'm too late. Okay? It happens, and we still do it. And I can remember that from when I started comp flying years back. Okay, so really get that in your head. If any of us have got time on the hill and we're mucking around and it starts to get good, the guys I came up with, I'll be poking them, saying, are you ready? Are you ready to go? Because it takes time. By the time you put your kit on, get your radio sorted, maybe link up your camelback, it's probably going to take you somewhere in the region of 5 to 10 minutes. And that's with your glider and everything rigged and laid out on the ground. Some of us will take longer than that, even 10 to 15 minutes. So gliders start taking off and start flying, and you watch them for a bit, and, they're starting to go up, maybe it's time to get up there now. And you go and get your harness, you put it on, you find your radio isn't down your sleeve, you take it off, you go back. And then strangely enough, there's a queue of other pilots who want to take off. And it's all of a sudden 15 to 20 minutes has just gone. And you look up, and he's gone, and half of them are gone, and you're left with the pilots who didn't take off early enough. And you'll tend to find they are not the more experienced pilots. Who do you guys want to fly with? The more experienced pilots. They're the guys you're here to learn from. It's much, much quicker to learn from them in the first part of the flight than try and work it out yourself. So, have I made that clear? Because if not, I'll go over it again. So we're going to take off. We're going to be rigged and ready. Don't chat. There's plenty of time to chat once your glider's rigged and all your kit is sorted. Then you can have a chat. Don't chat beforehand. Don't feel you've got to be at the back of the queue. Put your glider where it's sensible, where you think I can get to take off nice and easily. People will still push in front of you. When it gets a good day, it'll happen. Don't take it personal, it just kind of happens. Okay, I think I have done that one in reasonably hard. Yeah? You got anything to do on that, Gordon?
I would say if you have to leave behind everybody, because not everybody can leave behind the people that are actually not on the tear, the decalogue.
Who speaks for it?
Large potato.
There you go. And that's a good point. And if you are rigged near the front and you decide you don't want to take off, just move your glider to one side. Let people come through. Okay, don't stand on the lawn. If people want to come past, they'll push you. And they'll start niggling behind you. And you have a choice. You can go, okay, that's fine, I'll take off now. Or actually, I don't want to. And you just move to one side. Okay, that's fine, you move in front of me. And then they'll stand in front of you and fiddle around for 5 minutes, and you can give them a hard time from behind. Because they're under the pressure then. All right, don't let the pressure get to you. You are here to fly and have fun and compete, and you will pick things up along the way. Okay, where are we moving on to, Richard?
Thermaling and flying en route.
Thermaling and flying with others en route. Did we deal with joining thermals yesterday?
We started joining thermals, yes. So don't fly into the middle of the thermal. But let's recap again, because not everyone was here.
No. Okay. How many of you are experienced and competent at joining thermals with other gliders? Okay, that's good. That's good. That's kind of 50%. When I say joining thermals with other gliders, I mean joining a thermal with probably 3 or 4 other gliders going around in it at the same time. So when you join with one other glider, that's okay, that's not too bad. When you start to join a thermal where there may be 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 other gliders, in that kind of height band where you're coming in, and there generally won't be more than that, because the rest will be up there or down there, it becomes a little trickier. So, how do we join a thermal then? That's the question. Any answers?
I like to do something.
Good, here we go.
You and me, come on.
Who's thermaling?
Which way are you going to go?
I'm going to go the other way then.
I'm going to join.
Okay, let's get going round. Let's go round and Darren will join after that.
Right, I'm ignoring Gordon.
I can see Darren coming. Right? Before let's think about already being in the film and Darren's going to join. I'm coming round. I've seen Darren. He's coming.
I'm coming on the outside.
Oh, no, just stay over there.
Oh, sorry. Just stall out there, mate.
Yep. What's Phipps thinking here? He's seen Darren. What's he thinking?
I'm going to...
He's a bit bloody close.
I'm thinking, will I get my turn in before Darren comes in? Now, you go past. He's got his turn in before Darren comes in. Now, I've seen Darren, right? I'm thinking, gosh, it's British Open champion. Darren, respect. I am nobody in his shadow. Right? So, I better let him in. So I open out. And now what happens? Total confusion. He doesn't know where I'm going, because he's planned to come in following my track. Continues. So, unless you absolutely have to, you stick to your plan in the thermal. Keep a look for the guys coming in. If anything, you use slightly more bank than you would on your own. You make it obvious to him, I'm going round in front of you. So I'm going to wait till he gets really close and bang it. I'm going to make it obvious that I'm expecting to get round before he comes in. So I'm not going to wobble about wondering what he's going to do. I'm going to take my line and carry on. And then you come in. So each time you come in between us.
No, I'm following Gordon because he's my mentor.
Right?
You was playing
And he's following me.
Usually, no matter how crowded it gets, you only have to keep track of 3, maybe 4 guys. You need to know if you're comfortably above the ones below, and if you need some awareness of whether you're catching up the ones above you. But the only ones you need to absolutely know where they are the ones on your level. And there are only usually 3 or 4. If you get up to the next level and start doing a European or World Championships, it's slightly different to that. There is many more. And there can be 6 or 7 at your level. But at this level of competition, we're only talking usually a couple of other gliders that you need to be absolutely aware of in the circle. And like when Darren's coming in, if I get that circle round before he comes in, he will usually go in below and I don't need to worry about it. And of course, on topless gliders, even fewer at your level because they're thinner. And this is one of the things that is very noticeable when you start circling with paragliders, is you need to be, is they're so tall, is that they're occupying 2 or 3 of the levels that we're thinking about when we're flying in the thermal together. So, or in the traffic, clear your turn and be positive about what you're doing, and make it obvious to the other people what you're doing. And don't start opening out of your circle because it looks like somebody wants to come in. It's up to them to come in and fit in with you. If you're already in, make it obvious what you're doing. It's a bit like getting a 360 in the side of the hill. A bit more bank and get it round.
Most of us are quite considerate people, and it is one of those occasions where being over-considerate causes confusion. You know, pilots expect you to do something, and if you're being Mr. Nice and think, oh, well, I'll just let you in nicely, then it will upset things. If Darren's coming in, and I'm coming around here now, and I'm doing exactly what Gordon's about to do, but Darren's actually approaching, he can't stop. He's got to keep coming, you know, he's going to fall out the sky. And he realises he's going to get here a little bit early. The only real option he has is to bank off around the outside of me, right? I come round, because I'm doing a tighter circumference, he's going to drop behind me, and then he can feed his way back in. So you need to think that as you approach the thermal, okay? Judging your timing, altering your course, and then swing in. The worst thing he can do is come smacking into the middle of us two. Particularly if Gordon's coming around here, as he's coming in there, and they're kind of looking at each other. And then you get confusion because you get somebody will hold their hand up and go, but the rule of the air is we both brake right. And of course, Gordon is not going to want to brake right in any shape or form. So you have to really realise that things change.
Rules of the air are great for aircraft with windmills on the front flying around in straight lines. But they don't cover the thermal etiquette. And we have our own unwritten rules. Well, they are written, but they have no legal basis about the guys in the thermal have right of way over the guys coming into the thermal. And that you give way to the gliders coming up from below. Guys are born to give way to people coming up. So that's something that Graham Phipps is yet to learn. He'll get out of the way by basically crawling across the soft surface and falling off the lid.
Okay, so
fortunately, very few people actually climb through the ground, so he's always shocked and mystified when it happens.
that's kind of the easy bit.
The key rule there which you have outlined, which is break. But there's rule 0, which is the one that counted for all the rest, which says you take whatever action necessary to avoid a collision. Which doesn't necessarily involve braking right, because in this circumstance that wouldn't make any sense. So there is a rule 0, it is written in the law, it says, before it gets to the list of things you should do, it says, pilots are responsible for taking whatever action is necessary to avoid a collision. Never forget that.
And that's absolutely true, but we're going to ask you not to invoke that by just flying at Gordon and expecting him to take avoiding action to avoid the collision.
Both pilots' responsibility.
But people do play on that law. All right, we're all grown-up people. We're flying in a competition. If we understand how it works, it will work. Before we move on to the next little bit, which is 2 thermals, and what will happen is where you end up, and there's a core here, and then pilots will start to approach it and find another little core here. And what happens in that situation, so I'm never sure what does, to be honest. Just an interesting one, and touching really on what Angus is saying there is, who knows the rule on the higher and lower glider? So if you come into the thermal and you're climbing faster and approaching a glider above you, coming up, who has right of way?
No.
There is no rule. Okay, people think there is. They'll say, "Oh, lower one has right of way."
It's
courteous to move out the way.
Courteous to move out the way. Absolutely. All right.
Not least because the one underneath you has difficulty seeing
Seeing
your
above.
sail. Your sail.
But it is a classic misconception, right? So do not guarantee the guy.
What I would
One
say
out.
is if somebody comes steaming up through you, you are doing something wrong with your body. It's the same air. So if somebody is flying through you, it must be that they're tighter in it and more in it than you are, and you're not doing two big circles or something, because they should not come up through you because the air is the same and everyone's got these things on the same. So if you put yourself above the best climbing glider, you will go and stay clear of them in more normal circumstances.
If you're in an established thermal.
Yes.
You know, we can go into many anecdotes, but it wasn't that long ago, not far from here, when Johnny Carr came in under me and I'm in a zero, and Johnny comes in and starts screaming up, and I just sit there waiting for it to hit me. And I tell you what, Johnny just went straight past me, just like that. And I swear blind, I never did find that cool. It literally went straight through. But if you're in an established thermal, yeah, you're probably doing something wrong.
Funny things happen, but normally that's the case. So the actual climbing up into somebody is a rare event. But when somebody is coming up, they get very annoyed if you don't do that.
And
They
quite
have
right.
to then screw up their turn because they've come up and suddenly been surrounded by gliders. Normally
So-
in that situation you carry on up through because you're all forced out and you're getting way too.
Popping underneath to follow you up. So we've got this scenario, and this is very common, particularly in the early stages of climbing out off the ridge. When we end up with a core going up here, other pilots take off, start to approach, and find another area of lift just inside. So you get these two circles going round and round and round, which slowly and inevitably start to come together. Generally, one of those will be slightly better than the other. The people in the slightly better one will hopefully stay there. The people in the slightly worse one will eventually join that core. But it ends up with a confusion area where these two start to merge. You have to make a decision which core you're going to join. And it will be driven by how fast the cores are going up, and almost a majority decision. Pilots will suddenly decide, and you'll find you've got less and less pilots in your core, and it's time to join the next one. It's not an easy thing to do, and it does cause a little bit of confusion. And there'll always be somebody left on the outside who's convinced that their core is better or doesn't like flying with lots of other gliders. So they'll stay there, and every now and then they'll almost conflict as you come around to this place here. So it's quite a tricky one. Just be aware of that. I can't really give any advice on the rules of joining come the same. As you come around, you can slip into the next course, but really think about it. Okay?
One of the main differences you get in the thermal, often you get these thermals that are, the ability is distributed vertically, and the ship kickers at the bottom, and the good pilots at the top. Right? And if you are gliding into a gag, sometimes you come in at the bottom, and it's really noticeable as you climb up through them, that it gets easier and easier the nearer you get to the top. And the main difference is how quickly the pilots adapt to the stronger areas of lift and move the centre of the circle. Is when the pilots are overly concentrated on where each other are, rather than where the lift is, then that group of pilots is slow to move to the stronger area of lift. So the good pilots are constantly straightening up and strong, and then trying to come round and tighten into the stronger bit on a circle that potentially conflicts with the others. And what you notice when you're with the good guys is as you hit that surge, straighten up, and then come round to come into it, you look, and they're already lined up on you. They've already seen you surge, and they're already opened out, ready for the surge before they even hit it. So that it moves instantaneously into the strong base. within a circle. Whereas with the less experienced pilots, you do that and find that your circle conflicts, then you have to then go round them, back onto their centre to come round again to straighten up again into the stronger bit. And maybe do that 2 or 3 times before they all cotton on. Or, hopefully, actually climb up above them so that you can come round above them and go into the strong bit. So that's how you out-climb the people who aren't so good, is by climbing up enough to do a circle that doesn't conflict with them. Or actually straighten up so much that you can turn inside them and get it round irrespective into a new centre and be above them. But the main difference between the top pilots and the not so top pilots is that movement and tracking of other people's surge and moving around and onto the new centre. Or it just happens without any conflict. At the top of the thermal with the best pilots.
What you may well find is, and it's a situation you'll probably end up in, but it's not the ideal situation, is you'll come in and join a thermal, and there'll be the guys going around the middle on a reasonable set of banks, and certainly in the early stages of the comp, they're not there to throw you out the thermal. They want your company to try and use this lift and get everybody up. But the more inexperienced pilots will tend to take a slightly bigger circle, and there'll be almost like an outer radius of pilots going around. So you've got the guys in the middle who are going up quite nicely, and then the more timid pilots will come in, but they'll kind of bank off to the outside. And the guys in the inside are thinking, are these guys going to come in now, or are they just going to keep going there? I really don't know. And if they're a little bit considerate, they'll try and open up to let you in, and then that upsets the thermal again. So watch the core of that thermal and how it's going around, and try and join it on that radius. Don't be too timid and keep going to the outside, because if you go to the outside, you will be in the left lift, so you won't climb. You'll be in not as nice air, because generally you'll be getting near the interface of the thermal, and it'll be more uncomfortable for you. Plus, other people who want to join that thermal have now got 2 rings of gliders to deal with. Okay, it doesn't mean we all go in on every thermal and crank it on a wingtip and go around like that. When we're thermaling en masse, quite often we will have a slightly bigger radius than we would normally like. When we shave it down to maybe 2 or 3 gliders, and they're quite good pilots, then you'll see them cupping up and doing all sorts of tricks on each other. Alright, so don't be too timid. I'm not saying go in there and be aggressive. We're not trying to punch everyone out of the thermal. We're trying to use it together and maximise that climb rate out.
So the better the thermal, the more easily it sorts itself out, because the altitude differences occur quicker. So where do you think it might be worse? What situation can you imagine where the thermal is going to be busiest and least fun? Even on a good day. Not so soon after launch. You've got the whole ridge to go at. You can go and find your own thermal. The worst situation is going to be 5 minutes before the start on the edge of the start circle, where nobody wants to glide. Everyone's got to stay there, and they're waiting. And perhaps it isn't even a climb anymore. It's a half down. So the chance to climb through people isn't there. What tends to happen is the people on the top gradually sink into the people below them, and the people below sort of keep finding little surges and trying to tighten up into them. And everyone's desperately trying to hang on to the 3,000 feet or whatever they've got above the ground for another 5 minutes before the start. And in a lot of competitions, this is a very, very important bit. And we try to make it less important, like for the sports class we let them go without waiting. But this waiting for a 15-minute, 20-minute start increment is an important aspect of international competition that we have to work with. But if you're in the sports class, when you get high, you just glide like you're going open XC for yourself. Don't worry about the start time. It's usually you get the time that you go through them. If it's windy and it's hard to stay without being blown out, then we drop the start increment so that we can go whenever we want. But then on the edge of the start cylinder, there's still, I'll get a later time, hang back and glide straight into the thermal just outside with a faster time already on the other people. So you get this game going on in the line. Rather than being forced for everyone to stay there until the time and then you'll go. You know?
So we started to drift a little bit more into comp tactics, but as Gordon quite rightly said, the majority of you guys don't worry too much about the start time. Let's get high, let's get into thermals with people and get up and ideally go with other people.
I think at the starting level in the competition, in the open class, with the start increments, the important thing to know is whether the first one's gone or not. Once the first start happens, go through whenever you like. Just try and fly with the other people. Because it's going to be 15 minutes in a 2-hour, 3-hour flight. That difference between having the perfect start and going through 5 minutes early on the next one. Doesn't matter.
And it will only matter if you get to goal, really.
Yeah.
And a little bit of lead points in between. So it's not the end of the world. Okay, so we talk.
If there's going to be a mid-air, where do you think it'll happen? Where's the most likely part of the course for mid-air?
Cloud base.
Particularly
If everybody's waiting there at the edge of that start radius.
You might think that. And logically, statistically, you would think that that would be true. It's not.
Is it when everybody's left, there's just 2 people left on the ridge?
Yes. All the mid-air I've seen and been witness to have not been crowded. It's been before it's expected to get crowded, and it's been after it was crowded. And the nearest I would come to a mid-air is, there have been occasions in the crowd, but it's the most memorable near mid-airs I've ever had have been halfway down the course when I thought was on my own. So you've got to bear in mind, when you're flying cross country on your own, you seldom encounter somebody 50 miles into the flight. But in a competition, there's people looking for you, and they're going to come. And if you're circling and climbing, they're going to find you if they're still in the air and nearby. So be aware that all the way to goal, if you're in lift, you're going to potentially have company. So, and worry about the relaxing of, oh, it's not crowded anymore, I feel that. Because that is the situation that's statistically the most reliable.
right. So I've learned something today.
Which are very rare. Let's not get...
Let's keep them rare.
Let's keep them rare. But they are rare. We're talking, I've seen 3 maybe in the time I've been flying in competitions. So they're not common. It's still a very, very unusual thing. And let's keep it alive.
Okay. So the next heading on here is finding a thermal. Okay. How do we find a thermal? What's the easiest way? Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea. Normally it works, but not always. But it's a good start. Yeah, watch other gliders. I mean, that's the obvious thing.
The best way to go cross country without knowing how to do it is come and do it in a competition and follow everyone else.
It's as simple as that.
You can do that blindly and just keep following everyone else, or you can do it and try and figure out what everyone else is doing. Now, if you have the first attitude, you'll get quite good results and you'll never win anything. If you have the second attitude, then potentially you can become an excellent champion. So, it's a competition, and you only have to beat everybody by a little bit. You don't have to beat them by an hour. You don't have to go twice as far. You just have to beat them by knowing what the other people are doing is a big help with winning by a little bit.
But to start off with, following is not a bad plan. It will give you confidence, it will get you going, and then you start to think, why did they go there? And work out why they went there in the first place, and that's why the lift is there. And it will become more apparent to you as you start to increase your flying. Obviously, there's all the obvious things of the birds, clouds. You start to play this game of chess, and everything is a chance. Every time you make a decision, you are taking a chance. And the more decisions you have to make, the more chances you're taking. So your job is to try and minimize the chance in that decision making. And that's not rocket science. Anything you can see that is a positive and a definite ain't a chance. Yeah? Whereas if I can see Gordon climbing, and I can see that's a definite, but over there I can see a nice cloud with a nice field under it, that's a chance. And I have to make a decision between those two, which one I want. Okay? That chance, if it pays off, might take 2k off the course to me. But it's got to pay off. And if I keep taking those chances, the chance is, sooner or later, one of them won't work. Or I go down the other line of staying with the definites, and I'll keep popping my way round. But I am unlikely to become a champion. And that's exactly where we're headed with it. Okay, so think of that. Every time you make a decision, how much of a chance is it? Now, there are times you're going to have to make decisions which will be chances. You have no choice, because there is no definite out there. And all you can do is look at your selection of choices and try and work out which one gives you the smallest chance. I'm no poker player. The biggest chance of being right or the smallest chance of being wrong, depending if you're an optimist or a pessimist. But poker players don't generally play on chance. People who win at that kind of game know how to minimize the odds, and that's why they win. And that's what we need to do. We need to minimize the odds against us and maximize the odds in our favor. You guys have all been flying long enough to understand cloud fields, sunny bits, and all the rest of it. You've read it in the books. Hopefully most of you will have experienced it, but it still never ceases to amaze me how many times I read things in books, and the only time I actually believe them is when it happens. You know? You can read it and you still make the same mistake, and then finally you do it, and you think, shit, they said it would do that in the book. And it does. It's a marvelous. And again, flying around this area, I've watched gliders go off into the grey, sink. A tiny bit of sunlight appears, and it's like a honeypot. And you'll see these gliders go to it, and blow me, that sun hasn't been there 2 or 3 minutes, and they start to go up. Absolutely phenomenal. So remember that. It is very, very easy just to keep gliding in a straight line towards the turn point, making kilometres. It is much harder to think, I'm going to deviate off to that small ridge that's into the sun, and maybe a bit of a lee thermal coming off it, because if I don't go up, I've lost 3k, 2k on my final glide. But actually, if you take that chance, and many pilots in this room will have experienced it, you go up and you make goal. And if you just kept gliding, in your heart of hearts, you're going to land. So learn. Use all these experiences to learn. Finding thermals. I mean, most of you, we've all thermals, yeah, of some kind or other. And the glider talks to you. You feel gliders surge, yeah? So if my glider's flying along and suddenly it starts to turn left, what does that generally mean to me?
Means you need to turn it.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're on a proper glider, I won't even get into an argument on this, because most gliders fly straight. But if it turns left, what does it generally mean to you?
Something's going up on the right.
It could well mean something's going up on the right. What else could it mean to you? Something's going down. Why does it mean something's going up on the left?
In a theoretically perfect thermal, you have concentric rings of air going up and down as it goes further out. So you might be flying through one of those outer rings, which the actual sinking air is on your right.
Great way ahead of me. Right? No, and that is a classic theory. But also, you will have put also felt, as you approach thermals head on, what does the glider tend to do? It'll accelerate, and then it'll go up. Similarly, if he's a big thermal off to my left, and I'm flying along, quite often the air is accelerating into that thermal, and my glider will actually go like that. So, and you will feel the difference. You will know if it's a lift punching you under that wing. It is a very different feeling. It's like the glider almost slides sideways, and you think, the thermal off is there. So these are all things, the glider's talking to you the whole time you are flying. And the nicer and relaxed you can be on your glider and fly with your hands just tucked on top of the base bar, you can hear what the glider's saying to you. And then with a bit of time, you'll actually understand it. And with a bit more time, you'll actually react to it. And it'll come to you. And that's the difference between sort of, I call natural pilots, and no disrespect to Gordon, and I've said this to many, many people, probably never to Gordon. I don't think Gordon's a natural pilot. He works hard for his flying, and he's learned to understand all these things, and he feels them now. Other people can get on a glide and they feel it almost straight away, but most of us have to work.
I'm not following him anymore, I'm going for someone else.
Yeah. I would. But it is hard work, and you've got to let this glider talk to you. And that's all about setting up your glider and your harness and being relaxed. How many of us fly relaxed? Actually relaxed? Yeah? One. Yeah? Okay? You may not want to put this out online. Most hang glider pilots, and I hesitate to say this and look around the room, have fairly firm buttocks if you look at them in tight trousers. I have a theory on this.
Very good observation. We have that demonstrated,
There is a reason for this. And it's because we fly around like that a lot of the time. I know very few pilots blessed cotton socks, Cody was one of them, who could fly totally relaxed. Grant, and there are other pilots in this room with massive experience, I'm sure can. But most of us, as soon as we start to get a little bit of tension, think of the thermal coming, whatever, we tighten right up. And that takes away a lot of our hearing from that glider. And we have to say to ourselves, relax, relax. How many of you found your thermal better when your radio's dropped out of the pocket and you're trying to put it back in the pocket in the middle of the thermal? And the glider just climbs beautifully. Absolutely. What's that telling you? Relax.
That's just you.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. No, quite often I'll find I just got so much better when I'm fiddling with something. And that's relaxing. Gliding is good.
Your harness setup needs to be so that you don't have to push your shoulders up on the base bar. You don't have to pull your shoulders down on the base bar. And in the thermal, you need to just rest your hands gently on the base bar. You see people with their arms like this, and their harness like this, arms almost straight, you've lost so much feel about what it's doing. You need to be just like this. And not, it's easy to start doing a handstand on the base bar, and there's several, if you're doing a handstand on the base bar, pushing the base bar around to hold your shoulders up, so that your shoulder rope is flat. Several things are happening. You're steering the glider with the weight on the hang strap. So if you reduce the weight on the hang strap by pushing down on the base bar, you've got less control. So not only have you reduced the amount of feel that you've got because you're wasting all that force, so you can't feel the sideways movement so much, you're also offloading your hang strap to a degree. So you like 5 kilos lighter, 10 kilos lighter on the glider. So no wonder you can't get it in the sun. Right? So if you can relax and just feel the forces that are coming at you through the base bar and yours and sideways movement, so you can feel through the glider, then you're going to know a lot more about what the air's going to do.
I was going to say, I'm sure pretty much all of us have been watching Ollie Chitty's video logs, and it's something that I've definitely picked up on because I've been exactly like that, where I've been sort of really trying to push the bar and pull the bar and all sorts going round. You watch Ollie Chitty, you can hear his vario screaming at him, and what's his arms doing? He's just getting his arms flopped on the base bar. And he's not really doing anything, he's just letting it go. And he's screaming up inside these thermals. So he's keeping control of it, but he's not really putting that much input at all in there.
The other films in the easy one as well, Greg.
Yeah.
Skateboarding.
Yeah.
Top tip on that is
This feeling what the glider's doing is really important.
Yeah.
I haven't been in that state for a long time because I'm not really flying. But when I was, you can feel what the air's doing around you for 2 wingspans in every direction. And nothing ever takes you by surprise because you can feel it before it happens. Because all that air around about you all has some effect on your glider. And if you're really keyed into it and you're really relaxed, you can feel it and you know what's going on. And it just changes the way you fly completely. Because all of a sudden you know what's going to happen and you know where the lift is. And it's all about being relaxed. That's really, really important. And it's also hard. Because as you say, it's very, and being in a competition makes it more difficult. Because you've got all these other gliders about. And also you're thinking about the task and you get all sort of focused and all of that stuff. And you get all tense. And that loses all that feel. And the feel is really important. So I mean, what Gordon and Grant and the others who are doing really well have managed to do is to take that extra step so that they can still relax even under the pressure.
absolutely.
Harness set up so you can fly relaxed. So the glider's trimmed how you want it trimmed. Now I have my gliders trimmed really slow, so I have to be leaning on the bar to prevent it stalling. And that's unusual. Captain can't fly like that. Captain's 3 holes further forward than me on the same glider. Now, so you have to have the setup that you're comfortable with, which isn't the same for everyone, and your glider has to go straight. Because if you've got a glider that you're always nudging one way, you're going to end up always thermaling that one direction, because it digs in one way until it's nice the other. So the gliders all the flex wings wind in to a degree, and if you have it with a turn in it, you tend to not want to turn the way it digs in most, so you turn the other way. And the worst thing you can do is develop kind of a terrible affinity for going in one direction, because in a competition you can't always go in that direction. We're going to go right before the start circle. And then after that, the first thermal you can absolutely guarantee, if I'm finding it, it's going the other way. Because I'm sick of going that way. Now, we actually looked at, Luke Fleming analysed one of my flights. I've gone 215 kilometres and I've been in the air for 7 hours, lots of crosswinds. And he looked at it, he analysed it in CU, and it was, I'd done 5 circles more one way than the other. It was like...
You've got a bias for that way around.
But what I actually usually find is I can do a whole XC where I'm doing mostly right, because it started going that way and it carried on going that way, and then the next day I'll do mostly left. But I try not to get an affinity for going one way. When you're doing your own flying on your own, don't get into the habit of only going one way.
On your harness setup, something we've come across both in competition and in teaching people is where harnesses are set too high. Now you might think if you're set too low you'll have more of a tendency to push up on the bar. The truth of the matter is you won't. If you're set too high you'll have more of a tendency to steer like this. If you're set low, and I set my harness, well it's standard set but it's probably only that far off the base bar, then you'll steer like that, and it makes a huge difference. The other thing is, when you get tense, most of us go like that, yeah? And if we go like that, you can feel it go up there, and into here. So you lose that feel. Pretty much from day one, when we teach people to fly, we get them to hold the base bar like that. We get them to hold the uprights like that, not like that. Because you can do everything you need. Full speed, you can turn, and if you need to push out, you can roll your hand. As soon as you start gripping that base bar and that tension comes in, it's going to go up your arm and into your shoulders. So just try it if you can. Just pop your hands, and especially with aerofoil base bars, it's really quite comfy because some of them are quite wide. And you'll feel the glide a lot more. All your gliders fly hands off, pretty much, yeah? You will have all gone up there and let them go and they just kind of fly there. And
You don't know that going
In the
in.
thermal, you're going to need your thumb behind it on the bottom side.
yeah, no, when you're therming, you're going to want to push out and back, but when you're feeling air, finding thermals, we want to be as relaxed. The other danger with finding thermals is, generally we're going on into thermal glides, yeah? And we tend to speed up. I don't know how many light thermals I have missed by flying too fast. And this is where you come into your competition tactics for your speed to fly, etc. And if you get really into instrument flying and end up flying at speed to fly consistently, you will fly quite fast, which is fine if you're going to hit lift. But when you come towards the end of a task and things might be getting a bit scratchy and you're wanting to make goal, you get sucked into this speed to fly, which is great if you've got enough height to make goal. But if you haven't got enough height to make goal, the head game has to change to the point where you're going to slow up so you can find that lift. And you can fly through a half up very, very easily without even noticing it. So if you're not racing to try and get somewhere, just don't get too carried away with full-on speed to fly, would be my advice. So feel the air, see what's going on. Do we want anything else on finding thermals? Finding thermals as thermal sources, are you all quite happy with that?
How about not finding sin?
Yeah, good question. Not finding sync. Generally, keep away from areas where people are going down and landing. That's always a good one. But if you do find sync, what are you going to do?
Speed up.
Try and get away from it. Yeah, you don't necessarily know which way to go, but what you don't want to do is hang around in that sync. It's going to end in the inevitable. I have no magic guide on that, I'm afraid, on not finding sync. I don't know if Gordon has. Darren? No?
Well, something to remember, particularly flying the valley, is the air where the wind's blowing down there is all generally going down. And the air over the rising ground is all generally going up. So if we are leaving Bertha in a 2-up, then if we're not very high and it goes to 0 as we're crossing the valley behind, is that static line? No. Is while you're in the generally descending air behind the hill, 0 is actually probably still 2 up, because if you leave that, you'll be in 5 down, because the air is generally descending. So you need to think about what the air is generally doing and feed that into what you consider to be air that's worth staying in and air that you should leave. And if you can get across to the other side of the valley where the ground starts to go up again, and you're going to have, while you're in this area behind the hill and this lift that's not really going up, but it's going up a bit and going down the rest of the circle, it's going to be, you're going to be itching to glide across to the other side where it's rising ground and the sun on it and all that sort of thing. But if you can keep in that 0, you're actually getting ground clearance because the ground's dropping away below you. And if you really lose it, then you've got to go to where the rising ground is, and that's where lift is more likely. Now, if you encounter lift where the wind is blowing down the hill, it'll usually be something decent if it's there. It's the crappy thermals are suppressed, and only decent ones can actually turn into what appears to be lift in the falling ground. Particularly if you're in an east wind and the falling ground is the ground with the sun on it, so that you get the wind shadows and the hotter bits, and then you get decent times in the lee. But in the westerly, the lee is the cold side, so the lee side is a less frequent. They can still occur because there's hot bits on the ground. But you've got to think about whether you want to go into the descending air. So the undulating ground that you get further down the course, you've got to think about, as you're gliding, whether you want to carry on onto the down-sloping ground, whether you want to do a bit of a detour along the rising ground. So there you are. you're with 6 people in this thermal, and the guy at the bottom drops off and glides, and so everyone glides, and they go onto the descending ground with the wind blowing down it into the shade, and you really think that it's probably best to go in a different direction. What are you going to do?
What you're going to do as opposed to what you should do. Depends what the guy was.
Well,
Yeah.
what that just reminds me of Azure when you've got a gap to cross and you know you shouldn't really go across that gap really low because you're going into somewhere where you can't land and somebody goes across and they're in the lead. What are you going to do? What did we do?
You'll survive.
So, one of the great dilemmas in hang gliding is several people doing the wrong thing will do better than one person doing the right thing. So, what you want to do, what you need to do, is be the guy on the top. Because if you can climb better than everybody else, then that gives you choices, that gives you risk management, that allows you to deviate from where the people going the wrong way are going towards where you think it would be better, and yet still be able to get to them if they climb. And that is 90% of how most of them wins competitions. He is not the brilliant guy who flies his own course all the way around. No, he's the guy that comes out the top of the thermal, and for 90% of the course, he makes everybody else take the risk. And then, at the end, he takes the risk and wins. So, I remember when I started flying with Alan Barnes in '96, we went for 3 months and did a whole series of competitions, and we said to each other, we stay with the gaggle for 2/3 to 3/4 of the course. No matter how much higher than you get them, you just use that to minimise the risk. So you stay with the gaggle and sit on them, and then as you get 2 or 3 thermals from the gaggle, that's when you say, I'm going to go over there to that cloud, I'm going to get an 8 up and glide into goal. And that works. It's so hard. So hard. You put yourself 2,000 feet above the guys that are dribbling along the ground and try not to glide. It's very, very difficult to sit there in 2 down.
If you're in that position,
But
I'm envious of it.
Probably now I would just glide and have the confidence of finding something. But knowing in the back of the line that, and now I've got these guys behind me in a group, and if there's anything there, they're going to go up. So I've got to keep looking behind me and fade back into them if need be. So, yeah, you can invest this altitude in being upwind of course line and stuff like that, crosswind flying. Upwind is like being higher until the ground comes up. So, yeah, use the other people is really important.
Okay, we're disappearing off into sort of tactics again. We did touch on, and Gordon brought up a good scenario there, of Merthyr and the valleys behind. Now, I am an optimist, and I don't want to put a damper on it and make it not happen, but Tuesday looks like we could possibly be at Merthyr. There is an art of getting out of the Merthyr valleys, okay? And basically that art is what Gordon was talking about, patience. If you start to race to try and get out the Merthyr valleys, even on a very good-looking sky, most of us in this room have done it once or twice and tried to race, have not got out, and we've ended up landing in them on perfectly good days for a little bit of lack of patience. It is incredibly easy to get caught out in those valleys. Some of those valleys are not very hospitable. Not necessarily because you can't land in them, but they're just not very hospitable. We could go on for several stories about the Merthyr Valley. But it's a patience game to get out of there. All right, and when, if we're flying there Tuesday, really bear that in mind. You will see guys that shoot off and go, and you'll have to make your decision if you're going to follow them or not. But generally, and every time we have a task, I say to myself, don't race out of the valley. The last time I did try to race out, I did get out, but it took me a long time, and it was a lot of effort to do so. And I really thought I was going to land in them.
There's a bit of south in the windows forecast, is there?
Yeah, I think
Maybe.
so.
That is
Which will-
easier because
which
you
will
come
help.
out onto the flatter area.
Once you do get out the
If
valley,
it's straight west, you come out of a pontoon valley.
yeah,
And it's quite steep. Timber and pontoon.
there's some quite nasty valleys there. If you do get stuck in the valleys, and you think you're going to land, decide early, and whilst it can be a bit of a walk, generally land on top of one of the hills. Don't go down in the valleys. You can help
Most
it.
of the hills have roads on the top of
Yeah.
some sort.
We can get you out. If you do manage to get out the valleys and get over to the far side, then you're going to drop off of the high plateau out into the flatlands, out towards the Severn and there. And that's the place you want to be patient and get high before you come off there. If you get to the point where you think, I can make it out, and you glide and you clip over the edge with 300 or 400 feet, as soon as you go to that edge, you will meet the down-going air, and you will go down remarkably quickly. So as you approach that point, you'll get all excited, and maybe the goal is at us. Now, us getting that far, but trust me, it's far enough that if you come off low, you won't get there. So, patience, build your height up, and then get out into the flatlands, clear the down-moving air, and life will be really good for you.
There's a sort of natural frequency to the air, a wavelength of sort of 3 to 4 kilometers. So if you come off the edge, you want to be able to go 3 or 4 kilometers past the edge on the flat, and there it will start coming up. So it's when you come over the sort of blowing area, you need to be out towards the far side of Abigail to get up to the over near the dual carriage sort of area. And that's the sort of area where you can expect it to go up on. It just happens all the time. Whether that's the altitude that we get, where we get low enough to pick them up, I don't know. But maybe they're all there, but they're all below us and we're right over the top of them. I don't know.
Don't want to find out, really.
No. But it's an east-facing slope that's cool. So you
Don't
want to be,
always go downwind. If you can get the flat area across
Yeah.
them,
yeah.
or the valley, there's all valleys already there.
If it's westerly, you might be
You're
better
no
off.
longer in descending air, you're in the valley wind. And from there, the thermal comes down the valley. You go straight over the edge, just Gordon and
You need to go 3 or 4
you
k's.
have to go quite a long way. So
So
go
it might be
sideways
better
is-
off to hang a left into the quick valley.
You can come up behind the Blorenge, you can get a bit of a coming together there. It comes down the big valley where the power cables are, and it also slides over the side on the south-east slope, and you get a bit of a convergency bit behind that. I've had two of them
Yes,
there.
there's lots of ways to explain why that unexpected thermal was there. And that's another thing is, if you can picture what's going on when you find that unexpected thermal, that's adding to your knowledge. But not just that, is if you get that explanation, then it might help you explore that lift better. So
Well, we'll remind you of that on Tuesday just before we all take off. Okay? Patience is a virtue for the marathon. A little bit on thermaling techniques. Everyone has their own technique. Some people will thermal with their trimmers pretty much fully off. Some people will thermal with their trimmers pretty much fully on. It's each to their own. And we've touched on it. It's all about maximising your climb rate. If you do see somebody thermaling with a long piece of string hanging out the back of them, do be aware they may not turn quite as quickly as you may like them to. Should there need to be an avoidance issue. But it's a very personal thing, thermaling techniques. We all know the basic theory of fly into it, count, the wing lift, turn, go back in, and centre up. I don't really think I can say an awful lot on thermaling techniques because, to me, I just fly it my own way. And I've talked to many people about how they fly thermals and go up, and they all seem to fly in slightly different manners. It can get aggressive in there, and if you are flying, with Gordon or someone like that, and you're going around, and they may see you climb, and they think, the core's a bit more tight inside, they'll come up inside you, And that's their thermaling technique. They won't generally do it if it's really busy and mad, but when there's only a couple of you around, and they'll pop up. So be aware of that. Everybody will do it differently. I think who it was, used to boat around, and they used to go up just as well as everyone else. They sort of flew around outside like this the whole time, and everyone's fighting it out in the middle.
There's other people that are like this.
Yeah.
It's very difficult because actually then they're above you and out of the way, but then they're down next to you and then they're below you. Because they're pushing the bar in and out, stalling and swooping.
And they still seem to go up. That's the really annoying thing about it. In order to give myself a structure, you probably noticed I quite like talking. I noticed that the next part is airspace, which I'm renownedly poor at. And I think we have some experts here on airspace.
I'm an expert on airspace.
Excellent. I'm kind of an expert, but not maybe in the right way, really.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stand aside.
Me talking about
Yeah,
airspace.
go on.
Well, it said Richard beside it. But
It's
he's
the
not
same.
there.
You can
Right
take
there.
camera if you want, but cameraman, don't go in it.
Yeah. I found that when you're flying, there's these little round circles on the map, and I found out that they are not targets, as I was initially. I thought that was like a target you had to get in it. And I've become a little bit, not an expert on airspace, but I've become quite experienced in it because I've done Manchester, Leeds, Bradford, several airspaces, and
Just clip though.
just
Just
I haven't done many where I've gone straight through the middle. And I found from experience some ways of dealing with that and trying to stop it from happening. And the first thing is being aware before you fly of what airspace you're gonna come across and where it is likely to be in your track. So when you're planning a cross country the day before, it's very easy because you can spend time on the computer and you're planning your track and you can plan it to avoid airspace, and you can actually put waypoints in so that you go around in the airspace. It makes it a little bit easier that way. On the day of the competition, you haven't got that luxury because you've got the actual task suddenly before you, and you haven't got as much chance to think about it. You've got the waypoints that are set, so you need to be aware of the airspace. And the first thing you need an accurate map with you in flight of where the airspace is and where you are relative to it at any one time. Some people have airspace on their Vario, and there are means of pressing the page up or down to go onto the airspace. Personally, I don't like that because my Vario, the airspace on it's not displayed very well, and two, it means you're fiddling with your Vario in flight, and when you want to be concentrating on the actual thermaling and the flying. So, personally, myself and a lot of other pilots I know fly with two Varios, also a Vario and an airspace map. And this is where you're all seeing the Crowbos, and everyone, or a lot of people have the Crowbos and with the GPS attached. And the benefit of that is you've got a big screen on the Crowbo that is showing you the airspace and where you are relative to it all the time. So that first thing is really important, so you can see where you are in relation to that airspace and understand what it means when you're looking at it. I'm not very good at it, so I just use the one screen, or two screens. There's sort of the drop-down view on top, which shows me the map and it shows me which direction I'm pointing in, and it shows me a line that if I carry on that direction, whether I'll hit that airspace or not. And I also look on the Probo one, there's a bit where it shows the cylinders that are currently in front of you and how big and how small they are in terms of the height. But you've got to make sure that you know where the airspace is and where you are relative to it.
So before, on top of launch, by the task briefing board, there will be an up-to-date air map. Have a look at that to see what's en route and associate it with what's on your instrument, because your Kobo, for example, could throw up some, I don't know, ILS landing approach arrows, and you think, well, what's this? It's suddenly beeping at me.
It will form part of the briefing as well. So any task that's going to take us anywhere near any airspace, there will be a discussion on that airspace, where it is, and probably some tips from Gordon about how to best avoid it. The other thing to think about is when you're flying is the wind direction and whether that's going to take you into the airspace or not, which is probably where Gordon's going to draw some pictures for us about. You need to think about your thermaling. Is your thermaling going to drift you into that airspace, and do you need to make your track go slightly off course in in order to account for the thermals that will drift you into the airspace. Are you going to draw a diagram about that?
Yeah, so typically, we will set the course to try and avoid the airspace. We won't generally be saying, oh, look, there's an airspace there. We won't say, here's takeoff, here's goal. We won't do that to you. If we will set a 10 point so that you might have something like that. So, for example, if we're coming off Merthyr in the southwesterly, with loads of south in it, the danger area at Candy, we would set the course to miss it. Actually, the Candy one is more a thing about coming from Malvern in an easterly, which we might also do. And we would set a waypoint to not put us either north or south of it, and not leave it to you to decide. We route the course to go one side or the other, rather than say just get past that and have some people going north and some people going south. Right? Because it's better to have it all. We try to set the course so people land along that predictable line and not fan out in all directions.
The ceiling height sometimes comes down towards goal as well.
Yes.
From this direction.
So as we go over towards Birmingham or down towards the east, we will usually have some sort of step down happening, 5.5 down, 4.5 down, whatever. And so the things you need to think about is how far is it to the first problem area? So you know roughly how many kilometres you're going to be seeing. Now, what you should be doing is flying with how far it is to the goal on your instrument, not how far you've gone from takeoff. And what I find is the less experienced people tend to, you ask them, how did you do? And they say, I flew 15k. 15k, they say, is the first thing. And I think, blimey, you got to 15k from goal. And they say, no, 15k from takeoff. Right? And all the people who are really interested in the competition are talking about their distance from goal. So I'm just saying that because if you say it's 100 k's we're flying and it's 30 k's to the first airspace, then at around 70 k to goal, that's where the airspace is. Right? So roughly how far it's going to be before the airspace is one of the things. You don't need to worry about it until you're getting close to it. So if, for example, we've got the wind blowing this way and we're going crosswind to avoid the airspace and then out towards the goal, it's fun.
Paragliding pilot.
So with the airspace here, you're going to want to go to this turn point and the wind's going to blow you into the airspace. So you need to be getting upwind of the course line, and it's better to do it early. Is while you've got good thermals and you're high, you put the crosswind in. Because when you get a low, all you can do is dribble downwind to stay off the ground. So the worst thing you can do is go, say you get a bit south of the line here, and then you get near the ground, and then all you do is you zero along, and then you have to land. Because the wind comes up. It's such a luxury compared to how it was. We know exactly where we are. We've got a picture of where we are and where the airspace is. So
does the scorer. How,
Yeah.
just actually on that, just to let you guys know how definite we are on scoring on airspace, what the margins are.
There isn't a margin.
Is there a margin at all? There's no leeway at all.
Leeway.
You're
out
in
of it or you're in it.
Yeah.
So you're out or you're in. If you're 50 yards in, you lose your score.
the way it's going in international competition is having a margin outside the airspace. So you start getting small penalties 100 metres before the line. That's the way it's going. And by the time you cross the line, you've got 10%, and then when you're like very little over the line, you've got 100%. So the penalties are heavy at the line crossing and of the order of 5% up until the line. So to try and make people not go all the way to the line, basically. So they can show to the authorities that people are being penalised, just people are avoiding before they get there and not going right.
Yeah, it's important because, it is a safety issue within the country. We are a sport that is under observation, and whilst modern technology is fantastic, it does put us in the limelight. People can see very, very quickly.
It's not a thing we can do is, okay, we're having this competition and yeah, everyone's got the track on, but we're going to keep the secret, we're not going to publish them. Much better to be able to publish the track logs, publish the penalties, and all above board. Because that's one of the reasons we come for a comp here is the airspace in terms of easy, we can fly 50 miles without really worrying.
We've got 10 minutes to briefing.
So, as only very quickly to finish off was we had on this list was looking at choosing landing areas. So I guess it's just
That's a good one to go through.
what to watch out for. Who would throw the floor over to anyone actually?
Right.
I don't know what to.
I mentioned a little bit on this yesterday, and I think Gordon will probably jump in and say some bits on it. When I first started doing cross country, it was like as soon as I was starting off my glide, I was looking for landing area, and the initial thing is on your first cross countries, it's a big panic. Where am I going to land? But as you get into it, you find that there's lots of areas to land. For me personally, when I'm starting to get lower, then I'm starting to think, or all the time, I'm thinking, can I make it to somewhere that looks like it's landable? Even when I'm at cloud base, yeah, definitely can, because there's miles and miles of countryside. But can I make it to somewhere that looks landable? And if I can't, then I'll make sure that I put myself in an area where I can make it to somewhere that looks landable. And when I'm looking for somewhere landable, the first thing is I'm looking for an open area that's big enough to do a landing in. Sounds obvious, but not like somebody's back garden. Sort of minimum of a big football field for me. Personally, I'm also looking for preferably an upslope into wind. I hate landing downslope, so I will always look for, if I can, an upslope into wind. Or if I can't do that, I will go cross slope and crosswind a bit, rather than go. I will not land downslope into wind, because you might just slide on forever and hit some trees at the bottom of the slope. So that's the big one for me, is the slope of it. And it can be really difficult when you're high up to judge which way the land is sloping. But you'll get the general gist of the undulation of the hills and where it is, but your particular landing field might be slightly different. And what I do as I'm coming round is I'll fly in big circles around it, and as you get different aspects of view on your landing field, you can get, from reasonable height, a fairly good idea of which way it's sloping. And sometimes it might be you've got several fields to choose from, all potentially sloping slightly differently, and that's a good opportunity then to say that one's sloping the best way for me. There's all the other stuff that we've read in the books and talked about as well, like for instance obstacles. Ideally you don't want obstacles upwind. You don't want a strong windy day and a load of trees upwind. You might sometimes find yourself in a situation where you're going to have some sort of obstacle upwind, and it's a matter of judgment and some experience as well sometimes as to, is it a really windy day and you really don't want big trees upwind, or is it virtually no wind day or very light wind day and a little bit of an obstacle makes less difference. But if you find yourself in that situation where you've put yourself there because you've got no choice, there are some obstacles upwind, and you know to expect it. You need to be thinking, what can I expect when I come to land in this area? So even on an upslope, I might have got it wrong, and it might be a steeper upslope than I was expecting, and so I'm going to have potentially some roads there or some trees or whatever. If I'm and personally, because I'm coming into an unknown landing field, I will generally always come in faster than I would normally on the top of the hill with extra speed. So if something does go wrong, I'll have that little bit extra speed to be able to cope with it. So if you suddenly find yourself getting dumped, you've got loads of speed on, and you can play it out a little bit better. So that helps you cope with that roadshow turbulence that you come across.
I think basically just don't leave it to the last minute.
No,
have it in mind,
yeah.
and remember the slopes around these parts.
Other points, absolute key is wires. You're not going to be able to see just normal telegraph poles. You won't see the wire from high up, but you will see the poles. So look for poles, because if you've got a line of poles going through your field, you can reasonably expect there's a wire between them. And that might completely discount that field for you, or it might cut off a section of the field. But don't try flying underneath or over them. Use them as a line that you're going to go. You might use them as a line that you're going to beat your height off on. You might use them as the line that you don't go any further right than that.
I once painted myself into a corner. I was diving across a valley to one landing option, so not what you should be doing. I'd seen that it got power lines, and I got there and I'd checked out my power line, but I could still land within it. And on my final approach, I discovered another power line straight across the middle of the field. I managed to pull it off, but it's an example of don't have your options down to one and check out the power lines.
So as you're getting lower, say you're coming up to a big area of forest, 5 k's of trees, and you're gliding downwind towards it. That's the way to go. What I would do is I'd invest time flying around off the coastline to try and find lift before I get to the trees. Right? Because ideally you're going to find lift and climb, and when you get to the trees you're going to be high. Right? It's a bit like if it was an ATZ that you can fly over the top of, trying to get high before you get there. Because once you are up against that tree line without enough height to glide over those 5 k's, you now need a thermal that's very strong, really, which is unlikely. Whereas if you pick up a weak thermal 5 k's before them, then you can be high enough to get across them. So try and not run up to the obstacles too low to do anything about it. It's worth thinking about the obstacles in advance, the areas that aren't manageable.
Yeah.
And that goes to the gradual undulations of the ground, which we've got throughout mid-Wales. Is I'm thinking, right, am I going to clear the next crest? Because I want to clear the crest and land just beyond it. I don't want to be at treetop height with the wind blowing up the hill. Yeah? So I'm investing time looking for thermals, investing oxygen, looking for thermals before I start gliding up the hill with the wind behind me without enough height to get over the top, because that's a mud scale.
A lot of us will
If you turn around and hop over all the hedges all the way down to the bottom again.
to use Gordon's term investing, we will invest height near a good landing field, which has a thermal source maybe just upwind or just crosswind of it, and give away a few dead certain k's downwind. But we'll hang around that area because we know if the thermal goes up, great, and we're in a good likely place for it to go up. And if we don't go up, we've got a good safe landing right beside us. The worst situation you get into is you're just going to make it into that field, and just as you get near it, you find a crappy thermal, but there's no other good fields around. And you can't then use that thermal. You're better off hanging back while you've got an extra few hundred feet to play with. Just touching on Darren's upslope landing, how many of you done reasonable upslope landings? Slope, pretty well, easy feet. It's amazing what you can land a hang glider upslope. On very windy days, if I go XC, I will look for a reasonable upslope to land on, because I will have less wind when I come into land. Obviously, it needs to be a nice shaped hill and with no obstructions on it. The other beauty of upslope landings is, fingers crossed, you will not overshoot that field.
That's something actually worth bearing in mind. Nobody overshoots an upslope, almost never.
That's the
Even
comfortable
experienced
bit
pilots
about it.
tend to undershoot. I learned from my cross, my first ever international. I hit some extremely small trees in the Sahara and it taught me a hard lesson then.
So when you're coming into an upslope, what are you going to hit as you drop down? Well, I hope you're not hit.
You have to experience a wind gradient.
Serious wind gradient. So you're going to come in fast. The glider's going to go for it. It's going to, it's like doing a fly on the wall almost. And it's going to go for it. Then you can use that speed to rotate and just fly up the slope, and then just treat it as a flat land landing and bang it off and stop it. my general guideline is try and land in the first third of a field. That gives me 2/3 to overshoot into. Okay? And that's worked over the years pretty well, because you rarely undershoot on a hang glide. So if you go for the first third, you've got a good
If
margin.
it's an upslope, you've got to be careful if there's boundaries on the downwinds on the low side. You can hit boundaries on the low side because it's an optical illusion. You know where you're supposed to, you know your glide angle, but this slope, it fools the best of us at times, and you know it's an upslope, and you tend to be used to approaching at an angle. And when that's like that, you're not going to approach like going uphill. You can't. You're approaching this, and you'll be eyeing a spot up on your upslope, and you'll never get to it. You just won't. And if there's a hedge along here, and you're eyeing up that spot, you can be in the position where you want to come powering in with lots of speed because it's upslope, and there's a hedge to clear because you screwed up. And you've got to find this horrible compromise between flying slowly up a slope over a hedge, or or hitting the hedge. So it's not, just bear that in mind.
No, it's a combination of the slope and also down moving air, because you will be flying in air that's actually starting to come down the slope to the side. So, but it's a very good technique and something practice if you're doing FCs. Find yourself a little upslope and go into it. And the other thing being, if you are going for an upslope, you know you've got an upslope. If you're going for a flat field, it may not actually be a flat field. It may be a slight downslope. It's very easy to get those two confused.
There is more slope than you think there is. Anything, it looks flat from the air, but then you find it's got a slight slope. You think it's a gentle upslope, and you get to it, and it's like a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
You think it's just a slight downslope, and you might get away with it, but
Yeah.
it's always sequencing.
I think that
Final thing on there is beware movable objects in fields. There are movable objects that will, even after you've landed, they will come and move on top of your glider. And don't rely on flying through open gates as you part of your landing stage.
That wasn't up. That was undershooting.
great. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Briefing.
Lovely.
Cheers.